Hello, everybody. This is John Mark Johnson Jr. I am the host of Relationship and Truth and Reformed DBA. Had 3 or 4 days last week where I only had about 500 calories each. This week I'll probably be about the same. Because of my digestive issues, and so I'm not exactly all that chipper at the moment. But the reason why I wanted to talk to you guys is just to tell you what's going on with me health-wise, at least as much as I know right now. Go into a little bit of detail about that so that you guys are informed on what's going on. Story starts about a year ago when I had a severe case of constipation. And presented myself to an urgent care facility, and they basically recommended milk of magnesia and one of the home enemas, and that took care of the immediate problem. And after that, I discovered that I had a hard time getting things to pass without some kind of aid, either the milk of magnesia or later on my mother actually turned me on to using psyllium fiber. And so I'd been doing that for quite a while, and it was working. Things were moving as they needed to. Not a huge deal. That was back late November, early December of last year. And then this year, around that same time, November, December, I had another severe case of constipation and couldn't figure out what exactly was going on, and so I did what had been recommended before, milk of magnesia, home enema thing, and that got rid of the problem of the constipation, but there was this constant bloating that persisted, extremely uncomfortable and just downright miserable. And I thought it was related to the earlier issues that I had, and so basically just up the fiber intake and try to deal with things that way. And it was still miserable. I was still able to pass food, but the bloating was just absolutely miserable, and I had to be taking fiber or milk of magnesia, every single day, and oftentimes multiple times a day in order to keep things moving, and so that wasn't good. And eventually got to the point where I was concerned enough about it that I figured, okay, over the Christmas break, because my job, they let us off between Christmas and New Year's as vacation time. So I figured, I'll schedule an appointment for my break time, and see if I can figure out what's going on here, because like I said, I was just absolutely miserable at the time. Went into the doctor's appointment and couldn't say a whole lot about it at the time, and those of you guys who followed my stuff on Facebook already know this, but initially they were thinking that it was some kind of a functional disorder, basically some kind of a neurological disorder, that the automatic part of my nervous system was not working correctly, and that's what was causing the issue. That was at least the suspicion, but needed more tests to be done before anything determinative could be done. And the main test that my doctor wanted to do was a colonoscopy. However, before the colonoscopy, on Christmas morning, as it turned out, I had a stool with some blood in it, bright blood, which is actually a good thing. It means it's lower down in the digestive tract, whatever problem you have. And if the blood is fairly bright, that's not usually a very big concern, because like I said, it's lower down in the digestive tract, and it's usually relatively temporary, and it's usually not indicative of something in the small intestine or something like that, or cancer, things like that. So it's Usually not indicative of a big problem, but it can still be worrisome. And also I was experiencing lightheadedness at the time. And so I called up my doctor's office, and the nurse on duty told me, with those kinds of symptoms, given that you've had problems for so long, you really need to visit the ER. So I went to the ER. And $6,000 later, they eventually got around to telling me that I have a colon infection. The technical term for it is diverticulitis. And so that explains a lot of the feelings of inflammation and those kinds of things, because there was inflammation and those kinds of things. I still have, I'm still on the meds for that, so we'll see how that turns out. I'm definitely feeling better than I was before, but like I said, I'm still very tired and worn out and those kinds of things, so we'll see how things go from there. But had diverticulitis, trying to recover from that right now, and that actually explains a lot of the issues that I've been having. It doesn't necessarily rule out other possibilities, but diverticulitis is a condition that is actually related to another condition that it flows from. The condition that it flows from is diverticulosis, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. And diverticulosis is basically when the cylinder that is the colon, of course it's wrapped around you inside your gut, but it's basically a tube. Diverticulosis is when that tube starts to develop little pouches in it. And this is actually relatively common. Most people, before they die, will actually develop a diverticulosis. It's very common that your colon will start to develop pouches in it. It's not uncommon at all. If you're over 60 years old, it's more likely than not that you have diverticulosis, that you have these little pouches in your colon. It's unusual for someone my age. That's the weird thing about it. Usually people don't show any signs of diverticulosis until their 40s, and up until their 60s it still isn't common. But like I said, after you get into your 60s, then like I said, odds are more likely than not that you have it. You might not realize it, but you have it. You'll start getting little pockets that develop in your colon. And like I said, for most people it's not a huge problem, but occasionally you'll get situations where those pockets will essentially become closed off and your fecal matter will not flow through them correctly. It'll just stay there. And when it just stays there, you get a really nasty infection, because your digestive tract actually has a whole lot of bacteria in it. And as long as things are moving through it, that bacteria doesn't pose any great health risk. But if things start to stagnate in one spot for too long, then they basically start to rot, and that can become a really major problem. And so that's what diverticulosis is. It's the pockets. When the infection develops, that's diverticulitis, which absolutely sucks. Take it from me. So that's where I am right now in terms of recovery and those kinds of things. Like I said, that explains a lot of things. However, it is also really unusual that someone my age would be having this problem, and because of that, my doctors are very concerned, both my ER doctor and my regular doctor, and that's why they want to do the colonoscopy still. Now, because I've been diagnosed with diverticulitis, I cannot do the colonoscopy as soon as we had originally planned. It got pushed off to the 26th of January. Basically because they don't want me on all the meds that I am right now when I go in for the colonoscopy, because even though colonoscopy is considered a relatively minor procedure, it is still a procedure that can have surgical consequences, and so having me on as few meds as possible for that is a good thing. So like I said, don't know if the diverticulosis is the only issue that I'm dealing with. Like I said, it's just unusual in someone as young as me, and so there might be other issues that have been contributing to the problem and whatnot. The main test will be once I get off the antibiotics and all the meds and whatnot, if the bloating that I was experiencing, because that was the main symptom that was inhibitive for me, if the bloating goes away or if it persists. If it persists, there's definitely other problems. If it doesn't persist, then most likely it is just the diverticulosis, and we can deal with that accordingly. As I said, the trip to the ER was not exactly cheap. That's about a $6,000 visit right there. And then the colonoscopy is going to be about $3,000. Then, of course, there's also time missed from work. There's the expense of the meds, special diet requirements and things like that. And it all starts to add up pretty quickly. My family has been kind enough to set up a GoFundMe for me. I'll try to remember to put that in the description box, because frankly I could use the money. This year has just really sucked for all of us. I've been looking through Facebook a lot recently because I haven't really been feeling like going out and doing much of anything, and so on the phone and all that. And there's a lot of you guys out there that are in the same boat. You have unforeseen medical expenses that have come up. People have died, and now there's funeral costs and everything that's associated with that. And then, when that person who dies is also the primary breadwinner of the household, that causes a whole lot of issues. Everything that I've seen online has indicated that we're all basically in the same boat right now. I don't know that any of us have a whole lot of money to spare, so I'm thankful for the GoFundMe page. I just don't know how useful it's going to be when everybody's just as poor as I am and dealing with a lot of the same issues. It just really sucks. Like I said, I've been looking through Facebook and I see a lot of your guys' posts of all the things that you're going through. Like I said, people who have died recently, people who are sick, people who are now recovered but dealing with mountains of medical debt. There's a lot of that going around right now, and just the stress alone, let alone the events themselves. Most of the people that follow my stuff are Christians, and it is safe to say that right now, based on what I'm seeing, and this is Facebook accounts and those kinds of things that extend over hundreds of people, it's fair to say that the people of God are going through a very stressful time right now, and that we all need to be holding each other up. Financially is appreciated, of course, but in prayer and also community. This is definitely a good time to be relying on that community as much as we can. Because, like I said, we're in hurting status. Even in my own church congregation, we've had people die recently who are very much so connected to all the members of the congregation. Of course, that hurts everybody. It's not an easy time right now. And of course, all the events that have happened in the past couple of years with all the pandemic stuff and all that, it's really taken a toll on everybody. And I just see the general decline in health. I see a general decline in outlook and optimism. I see just a downtroddenness that has real, very, very real health effects in all of us. And like I said, we're hurting people, and I feel very guilty about the fact of asking for any kind of help. My family's asking for $10,000 because there's $6,000 for the emergency room visit. There's another $3,000 for the colonoscopy, and then the rest of that is basically the amount that GoFundMe charges, and also incidental costs like lack of work, because for the colonoscopy I'm going to have to take off work for that, and then there's also medications and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, like I said, I see the hurt out there, and even though my issues have been really, really, really nasty lately, and I'm not out of it yet. We still have to determine if anything else is going on. I know there's so many of you that are in such a worse state than I am. And like I said, I appreciate any help you can give, but especially be sensitive to the people around you. Because from what I'm seeing, we're all in the same boat. Okay, there's so many people that are dealing with deaths and illness and just general depression, and the people of God are down right now. And I would really appreciate it if you would hold each other up as much as you can, because we need it right now. All of us need it right now. And frankly, it is painful to look at some of your guys' stories and sit there, look at my budget saying, I don't even have enough money to cover my own stuff, and I'm asking you guys for help. And yet I see all these other people that are going through things that, for example, just in mentioning my problems that I had with, basically 10 grand worth of debt, there was someone who got on there and said that they were $200,000 in debt for their wife with her medical issues, and it's just sitting there going, wow, that's a lot. Like I said, we're all in urgent status, and like I said, it would encourage me just to see, I appreciate any help you can give me, but just to see you guys helping each other out as much as possible right now. That would be most encouraging for me, and most encouraging and needful for you guys. Christians need to start looking after our own, because it's really clear that the rest of the world does not want us and is not going to care about us, and we need to be realistic about that. We have to take care of our own. Like I said, financially definitely helps, but spiritually, emotionally, mentally, people have got it hurting right now. And, no matter who you are, how bad things are, there's always someone who has a worse problem than you do. And we need to pray for those people, and we need to talk to them, and we need to do whatever we can to encourage them. And I want to especially encourage all of my friends right now. The church, God's people, have gone through bad times before. And things sometimes get really, really, really rough. History is full of places where Christians were severely mistreated. And the night got pretty dark. But God never lets His church fail completely. The light may grow dim, but God never lets it be extinguished. God has always had His people. Sometimes in the minority, sometimes in the extreme minority, but He has always had His people. He has always preserved a remnant for Himself, and He will do that in this time as well. There's going to be great sorrow. There's going to be great suffering. There's going to be great persecution. But as long as we put our faith in God, and as long as we remember the value of the church, the value of the community of the saints, and rest in that, and actually use that to our advantage, we form our own community and actually take care of each other, we will get through this. Thank you very much for your time and attention, and for listening to me ramble. And I'm sorry if it was somewhat disorganized. Not that my stuff is ever super organized, but like I said, I am fairly tired right now, because when you have diverticulitis, they want you to go on a liquid diet, and so I have not had much in the way of calories. I've had apple juice in the morning and evening, and some chicken broth in the afternoon. It's pretty awesome, or something. So yeah, like I said, if it's been disorganized, I apologize for that. But I want you guys overall, as much as possible, to be encouraged to look after each other, because that's what we need right now, and it's something that we can do. one way or another, we can help each other out, and we're going to need to in these days. All right, preached enough, complained enough. Thank you very much for your time and attention. For those of you who are in Christ, go with God and be blessed. For those of you who are not, I pray that you would come to know the true Christ of history, the only genuine Savior of mankind. Amen.